I guess there it goes. It started. We are on our own first podcast. All right. So I'm pretty sure I'll have a link for this. So if you want to listen to it later on, you can. All right. So you guys ready?
Yep.
All right. I guess we'll start off with our first question. Who do you think we should get in free agency? We got about $6.2 million if they cut everyone but Carr. If they keep Carr, which is the rumor, we have $6.2 million, plus they got to restructure probably Brandon Williams to get a little extra cash out. So who do you guys want for a wide receiver? Free agency. I'll start with Vince.
You want me? Ideally, I mean, it's tough, man. We got to see who we can afford. I mean, I would love to get Allen Robinson, but, at the end of the day, I don't know that we're going to be able to afford him. Looking out, there still seems to be a lot of teeth to this Jarvis Landry rumor, but, to me, I'm not paying Jarvis Landry $16 million as a slot man. To me, that's a little crazy, and I think he signed his tender today. So, I don't know how you would get him to take less than $16 million at this point. So, I think Sammy Watkins would be my best bet for the combination of price and talent. I just think, there's a lot of risk there with the injury, but with the injury history, but I think you can get him on the cheap, and he could end up being a steal. So I would say probably my number one right now would be Sammy Watkins.
All right, Vince. I like Sammy Watkins too. I mean, because Sammy Watkins is going to be a lot cheaper than Jarvis Landry. Going to be a lot cheaper than Allen Robinson, and everybody in the NFL wants Allen Robinson. So he's not coming to Baltimore because somebody's gonna pay him a lot of money. Yeah. So for me, Sammy Watkins is going to be the cheapest, I think, because Robinson, Watkins, and Landry are going to be the top three guys. I think if you start to look down at some of the guys that are going to be a little bit below that, I mean, there could be some guys I think that could come in and make an impact. And Rob, this is one that you talked about a while ago, possibly Jordan Matthews, if he's healthy. He had a couple decent years in Philly early, and then just kind of fell out of favor. It seems like with the coaching staff there. But Jordan Matthews is a guy that you could probably get for a little less money. I think I'd take a look at a guy like Danny Amendola as well, coming out of New England. Possibly, but I don't think the Ravens are going to land a big time number one unless they get somebody in the draft from a free agent perspective. But I do think they can make some moves potentially if they want to make this Jarvis Landry thing work. Because you can sign Mosley to a deal, restructure Brandon Williams, and then you just got to start to try to make some cuts from there. But then they're going to be cap strapped after that to really do anything else. So Jarvis Landry kind of be the one guy you get.
But he's $16 million, so how can you afford him with 6.2? Or I guess that's the question, right, Vince? We're kind of asking. Also, $16 million for a slot guy is pretty expensive.
You can make it work. You have to sign him to a long-term deal. So if he can't come here under the tag, right? So the only way it works is if you can work out a deal and then sign him to a long-term contract, which will lower his initial cap number, right? You can probably get him in for a first-year cap hit, I don't know, somewhere around $5 million or so, based on the way you structure it. My thing is, I'm not sure he's a number one, right? So what do you have to give up to Miami? Now, at this point, I think they're pretty desperate to unload him because they're I think something like $19 million over the cap. So
that's correct.
They gotta make some moves quick to get under the cap by the league year. So I don't think the compensation is going to be a problem. You could probably get away with, honestly, a fourth or fifth rounder, but it's, do you want to sign a long-term deal for Jarvis Landry, who is a real nice player, but I don't know if he's a number one. But I will say he does fit the Raven type mentality that they look for out of the receiver position. I mean, dude's a dog. Like he
Yeah.
fits what the Ravens look for in receivers, but they'll just have to see if they can make it happen. What about I'll throw out a name that I think has been linked to us. I think I saw Rappaport link him to us. Dante Moncrief. Any
Yes, I have seen that.
what do you guys think about him?
Yeah, Moncrief is not a number one wide receiver, I think, either, but he is fast, if I remember correctly. So maybe if you got him and then drafted a wide receiver, that would kind of be the way to go. But I don't know if that's a splash. Al?
No, Moncrief hasn't put up big numbers in any year really since he's been in the league. So he's somebody that you're bringing in to me as kind of a second tier option, and he's really the guy you bring in if you can't make any other splash. And I wouldn't just look past Allen Robinson and Jarvis Landry. I think the Ravens are going to be making some calls to try to trade for some players too, or a player.
Yeah, on the trade front, I mean the one guy I still have my eye on is Dez.
Yeah.
I know Jerry Jones says he's staying, but there's something there. He's carrying a high cap number. It seems like him and Dak just haven't been able to find a connection, and it seems like my brother's a huge Cowboys fan. He's saying that Dez has really bogged down their offense because Dak has just been trying to force feed him. So that would be my home run situation to me. I mean, but again, you're talking about you're going to have to give up draft picks and you're going to have to do something with his contract.
Yeah, I can see that. What about Cameron Meredith? He's a restricted free agent. Terrell Pryor is out there. Mesquite Lee. Paul Richardson. I like Paul Richardson a lot. He's a pretty good number 2 wide receiver. Again, you can still move up in the draft and get another guy, or if a guy happened to land to you. But Paul Richardson's pretty nice. 44 catches, 703 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. That guy got real hot towards the end of the year, so I could see that as a win. Jimmy Graham, no one's talking about him. You bring him in.
Jimmy Graham's a good player. I just don't think he fits what the Ravens were trying to do in Baltimore. I mean, he's not going to block for you. I mean, he's a great pass catcher, but I think the Ravens need a starting tight end that can catch passes, but can also really be a blocker for them up front as well. I mean, and Jimmy Graham's not going to block at all, so he's going to be a guy that you bring him in only on passing downs. I mean, you're going to have to pay him a lot of money because I think he's going to be another guy that's going to get paid, and I wouldn't just pay him just to come in and be a pass catcher, because I think at this point in his career, I just don't think he's what he used to be when he was in New Orleans.
Yeah, to me, it's more about the money, Al. He's going to get some big money. People are going to chase, what he was a few years ago. At the end of the day, I don't for a fit. I think it would be fine. I mean, at this point, I think all the tight ends on our rosters are blocking tight ends at this point. So,
Yeah,
I think he can be a good fit for us as a move tight end, but it's the old Ozzie, right player, right price. I just don't think his price tag is going to be appealing to us.
no.
Yeah, but Joe Flacco's had his better years with Dennis Pitta, right? Whenever Pitta played, he did better. So
yeah, no doubt. I mean, we need a athletic tight end that can stretch the field. But again, I'm not that far into the draft prep yet, but I'm hearing it's a great tight end class. So I think you might be able to solve for that in the draft.
That's a good point. There are about 2 or 3, 4, maybe like 5 really good tight ends they could grab. Kind of reminds you of the year Gronk was out there, Aaron Hernandez, Dennis Pitta, all of those guys. That's a good point. So I guess that brings us to our next topic. Should the Ravens draft a quarterback in this draft? And if the answer is yes, what round do you want them to get a quarterback?
I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but first round at 16, I feel like if Lamar Jackson's there, I'd take him.
So we got one Lamar Jackson at 16. Vince?
Yeah, I mean, you saw my email today when this topic was kicked around. You know, my bottom line is I think we're almost 100% drafting a quarterback this year. But I also think we're almost 100% not drafting one in the first round. I mean, to me, this whole deal, you look at where we are at an organization right now. I mean, we're at a crossroads. This is kind of the last stand, right, under the old guard. So you have Ozzy's last year as GM. You know, Harbs is firmly on the hot seat. Joe is pretty firmly on the hot seat. You know, I think this is the year to kind of make or break whether or not we can move forward with this regime and still chase a championship with these guys, or whether we need to blow it up and start over. So if given that is the landscape, I don't see how QB at 16 makes any sense, because Ozzy's last year, he's going to want to go out a winner. A quarterback does not help him win this year.
Nope.
Harbs is desperate to win and get back into the playoffs to save his job. A quarterback at 16 is not saving his job this year. And bottom line is, you know, from Bisciotti's perspective, they're all married together. You know, they're all in this together. So it's either this is going to work with Harbs and Flacco and we're going to right the ship and get back to the playoffs this year, or it's all going to get blown up. And then at that point, if you drafted a quarterback at 16 and you're looking for a head coach next year, well, pretty much most head coach candidates want to be able to pick their quarterback, right? So you're going to have to try to find a coach that is comfortable with a franchise quarterback that they didn't bring into the building. So to me, it makes no sense. I think quarterback's deep this year. I think frankly, I also think a lot of the top end guys are going to go early. So I'm not even sure what's going to be available for them at 16 at quarterback. But to me, I'd much rather, you know, try to scoop a middle round. At this point, I don't think Mason Rudolph is a middle round guy. He might be more towards a first round guy, but there are plenty of quarterbacks that you can kind of grab in the middle rounds and have as a backup and a developmental guy. I just don't think you draft a franchise quarterback into the environment we have right now.
So you're basically saying the last 3 years, Flacco hasn't had any. I'm just kind of tossing my thing out here. 18 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. If you draft a quarterback, and I agree with Al, at 16, that can come in and improve on those numbers. Lamar Jackson, Josh Rosen maybe gets there. Baker Mayfield may get there. I think you have to upgrade the position of quarterback.
But let's be honest. None of that, even if we draft a quarterback at 16, Joe's the starter this year. I mean, there's no way around that. We're not paying him, you know, we're not having a $25 million cap hit for a backup quarterback. It's not happening.
Vince, I agree with you. Vince, I agree with you there. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of what's going around really here is just the fake news.
Yeah, it's lying season, right? I mean, that's bottom line right now. You know, so you're going to hear tons of stories about how we're interested in whoever, you know, Baker Mayfield, whatever the case may be. But when you just look at where we're at as an organization, it just doesn't make sense.
I mean, my thought for the first round pick, if I'm the Ravens, is I'm looking at a wide receiver. I mean, I mean Ridley, I think will be there when the Ravens pick. I mean, I like DJ Moore, the kid from Maryland, in the first round too.
I ain't gotten that far yet, but go ahead.
So and then and just based on the quarterback talk, I mean, based on all this talk and everyone talking about playing Lamar Jackson at wide receiver, I very well think Lamar Jackson's going to be there for a team to pick in the second round this year.
I agree.
I'm going to bring go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that Lamar Jackson is going to be there in the second. I don't agree that Calvin Ridley is going to be there at 16. I can get on board with DJ Moore in the first round, but not at 16. It's going to have to be in a trade back. I was talking with Rob earlier today, and I had been, everybody, myself included, everybody is being like, well, I would prefer a trade back. I'd love to get a few extra picks, and I would too. But you have to have a partner to trade back, and I don't think realistically there's that many people that are going to be looking to move up. I was talking with Rob, and I feel like the strongest possibility is going to be Atlanta at 26, moving from 26 to 16, because they're going to lose Dontari Poe at the nose tackle spot. And so if whatever the guy's name is, Villa or whatever his name is, the big D tackle from Washington is there at 16, I think they'd probably be interested in getting up in front of the Chargers, who are looking for a D tackle to let Bosa and their pass rushers loose. So I think that's a possibility, moving back from 16 to 26.
It's a good point.
The one thing I'll add on Ridley, I think pre-combine it was a pipe dream, but he didn't test very well. I mean, he ran his 40 was his. What's that?
So you still have a pro day.
Yeah, agreed. But his 40 time was fine, and his 3-cone was fine, but vertical was really weak. And you hear this Spark score that's thrown around by the draft gurus, and he was one of the lowest ranked in that. Yeah, and he doesn't have ideal size for number one for a stud receiver. I still think he's probably off the board, but I at least think there's a chance now.
I agree with you that there is I would consider it to be a remote chance. The player that I would be looking at in the first round, I don't really think there is really not, outside of the top few guys like Barkley and Chubb and like a couple other guys, there is not really anybody that I would consider at 16 that I would consider to be that much better than somebody that's available at like 28 or 34. Like I feel like everybody from sort of the middle, well, really out of like the top 8 down is kind of the same player between like 10 and 45. So I'd be trying to move down. The only exception to that, I would say, and I don't believe this is going to happen any more than I believe that Ridley is going to be available. But if Nelson, the guard from Notre Dame, is available at 16, I would strongly consider him at that spot and think about moving Alex Lewis out to the tackle spot in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, in most of the mocks I've seen, a lot of people have Quentin Nelson going in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over the map with guards. You've got Leonard Davis going second, but at the same time, Steve Hutchinson went 12, and David DeCastro went 24, and Logan Mankins went 32. So there is a history of elite guard prospects not necessarily going in the top 10 where they were expected to go. So again, I don't believe that Nelson is going to get to us, but if he did, he would probably be my pick.
Yeah, guard's always a tricky position, but in terms of drafting high, but the hype on this kid is almost gotten out of control. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous at this point. Between his tape and his testing, I mean, he's checking every box. So, but yeah, I would love to grab him. That's for sure.
Nobody wants running back at 16. Nobody here thinks get a running back.
Definitely take Barkley at 16.
Well, he'll be gone. He'll be gone. But no one wants a running
think
back.
so? You think he's going to be gone? You don't think we're going to get a shot at him?
Yeah, I'll throw out a name at 16 that everyone will hate immediately because it's the wrong side of the ball.
No, we like that.
Roquan Smith at 16.
But Derwin James, I think he's got Raven written all over him.
Yeah, I would take him and be relatively happy. Make him Fitzpatrick also. Not that you're going to get him.
He's going top 10 from every mock that I've seen, even before the combine.
Yeah, I agree. He's not going to drop. Denzel Ward's the other guy I kind of liked a lot too at 16, another defensive back, but they're not going to make it that far.
No, I mean, if I'm going to take a defensive player, it's going to have to be a home run. It's going to, I'm not taking a sort of middle of the road, type. Like this guy. Like, yeah, if there's mixed opinions, I'm not interested at 16. Basically, I want a slam dunk or I want to move back.
So would anybody take Roquan Smith at 16, the linebacker from Georgia? We're at a 4.5 40 at the combine. I mean, played well in the SEC all year long, and you need somebody that can cover and has some speed in the middle of that defense because I don't know. I feel like that's where they fall apart defensively, and that's where we gave up some leads last year.
Yeah, that's a good call, Al. I mean, I think that's probably our most underrated need right now is a coverage linebacker. For sure.
I think as he progresses, now not in the middle. I don't think it's going to be in the middle, but I think Bowser is lights out in coverage. He just, last year he doesn't know what he's doing. New guy and whatever. Doesn't really get the snaps because Judon played so great. But I think in the long term, I'm super, super high on Bowser.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, to me, he's an ideal chess piece in our defense. I mean, I think he's a base edge guy, but I think you can stand him up. You can move him inside. There's a ton you can do with him. And
yeah, I mean, he was excellent. He was excellent in college rushing the passer, and he was so good at coverage that they didn't have him rushing the passer all the time.
Nice. Okay. Here's a question for you. Is there any player you would trade up for, and what would you give up to get that player? And I'll go with I'll start with Bill, and then go to Vince, and we'll go to Al, and then I'll go last. Any player you would trade up for, and what would you give up?
Barkley's the only player I'd move up for.
What would you give up?
Are we talking about what I want to give up or what I would?
No, you gotta be realistic. This is.
Well, I mean, you're not getting him past maybe 3. I don't know. I don't think he's going to get to 3. But I mean, to get up to 3, well, what did they give up to get Matt Ryan? That was a shitload. I mean, it was he's
I think it was 3 ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing that. Like, Barkley's going to have to slide to like 12 for me to start to get interested. That's not happening. So, I mean, I would absolutely trade up for Barkley, but I'm not giving up.
I said any player. It could be any player you want. Any player you would trade up for.
Barkley's the only one I'm trading up for. We have too many. We cannot give up. Like, I mean, we were talking about it earlier. I'm in love with Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry is the wide receiver that I want, but I'm not giving up a first, second, or third round pick to get him. Like, I'm not giving it up. We have to have those first 3 picks. It really hurt us to not get the comp pick from Ricky Wagner. I really thought that was going to be extra third, and it's not, and that hurts us.
Yeah, that's a great point. That was brutal. I think he missed the cutoff for third round.
By like 10,
I think it was either fractions of dollars or I think and who knows what the fucking comp pick formula, and I don't think anyone really knows, but I think it was his injury late in the year that might have hurt him.
Yeah, it's possible.
All right, well, Vince, your turn.
Am I up on this?
You're up on this one.
I'm not. You know me. I'm not ever making a big move up the board. So
any player you want.
I'll kind of take the cheap way out. If Ridley falls out of the top 10, I'm moving up to get him. If at 11, 12, wherever. So if he's out of the top 10, I'm getting aggressive and I'm getting my guy. So, that means I have to give up middle round pick this year, middle round pick next year. I'm going to make it happen. He's got to fall out of the top 10. I don't, once you are talking about moving into the top 10, you're talking about significant draft picks you're giving up at that point. But if he can sneak out of the top 10, if these quarterbacks can get pushed up the board, teams get a little hesitant about his size or his testing. The tape is there. I mean, the guy didn't have a functional quarterback for most of his career at Bama and still made it happen. So if he falls out of the top 10, I'm going to get him. I'm not waiting around.
All right, what would you give up? What are you giving up?
I'd give up 3 this year and a 3 next year.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right. Well, he's allowed to give it up. All right, go ahead.
I don't disagree with the sentiment, but I'd give a 4 this year and a 4 next year.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the. I got to consult the old trade.
Yeah, I don't know what the chart says.
So, it seems to me that I would probably need to give up at least a 3, and maybe I can get away with a 4 this year and a 3 next year. But, yeah, we gotta stop waiting around. We gotta make moves to start to, and you're talking about bringing it back to free agency. Obviously, if we're able to make a splash in free agency at receiver, that changes the narrative there. But if I'm into the draft and I signed, the only guys I've signed in free agency are like a Dante Moncrief or somebody like that.
Who I would take, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I brought him up earlier. I think he's an intriguing sleeper to me. I mean, I think if he can stay healthy, he could be interesting. But if I don't have a number 1 by the time I get into the draft and Ridley falls out of the top 10, I'm making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. If you don't come out of March with either Jarvis Landry, Allen Robinson, or a player that has not been cut yet, me and Rob were talking about it earlier. I would not be ecstatic about Sammy Watkins. I would not be ecstatic about Des Bryant, but I would be okay with those additions as long as they didn't give up too much money, as long as it wasn't too long-term a deal. But if you get Landry or Robinson and head into the draft and try to find a very good prospect at wide receiver and a very good prospect at tight end, I feel all right going into May.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add, I'll turn it over to Al after this, but when I listened to Bisciotti's press conference, I got a gut feeling, and knowing the Ravens' MO, they hate to go into the draft with an obvious need. We always look to patch holes in free agency so we can be flexible in the draft and draft best player available. Well, with our glaring needs, we're going to have to make some splashes in free agency, and I think Bisciotti literally said those words. So, I would expect some fireworks because – and even looking at the receiver draft class, outside of Ridley and then more, I mean, you're talking about a bunch of solid guys, but not a lot of surefire number 1. So, if they want their usual routine of, hey, we're going to let the draft come to us and best player available and not have to reach for need, well, they better make some moves in free agency to address it. And sounds like they will, but we'll see.
All right. Well, go ahead, Al.
All right. I mean, in terms of the trade up, I mean, I'm with Vince. I mean, there's really not anybody that I'm moving up in this draft to get. I think if there's at least not into that top 5 range, because the Ravens have got to give up too much and they have too many needs. If there's a guy that gets close, I mean, I'd love for at the corner position Denzel Ward to get close. With the Jimmy Smith injury history, I feel like you could put together a great cornerback tandem with Marlon Humphrey as well as he played last year, and potentially Denzel Ward if he gets down to like 11 or 12 this year in the draft. I'd move up and draft him. In terms of the whole receiver thing, I think they're going to take a receiver in the first round is my gut, and I think they're just going to be pushed to take a receiver. I'm not as high on this Cortland Sutton kid as a lot of other folks are. Um, I just I don't know. I just feel like we fell into the trap of Brashard Perriman of a small school kid, put up some great production. Like I just need to see a guy that's in a big time league, making plays at this point, can catch the football. I mean Ridley's that guy. But the way he tested at the combine, you have questions about how well he's going to play physically at the NFL level. I mean, DJ Moore, I think, is a guy that I don't have as many questions about. And I mean, if he's your guy at 16, I'd probably just take him. But I'm hard pressed to find anybody that I'd move up the draft. I mean, I don't know.
You said Moore.
Ridley's the only guy I'm taking at 16. Ridler's the only receiver I take at 16. I'm not opposed to DJ Moore. I also like Anthony Miller of Memphis. I also like Michael Gallup of Colorado State. I'm not taking any of those guys in the first round. I could maybe be talked into more if it's a late, like a trade back situation, 26, 28, 32, something like that. I'd be happy to get him at that spot. But Ridley's the only guy I'm taking in the neighborhood of 16.
Well, that's where Moore's being mocked now at the back end of the first round. But I think he moves up, at least I think he moves up into the teens potentially.
Well, hang on there, Al. Now, if you're going to move up for Ward, what are you going to give up?
I mean, I'm not moving up for Ward. I feel like the talent is so even in this draft. There's guys like Barkley that are out there, and the Ravens aren't getting Barkley. Barkley's going 2 at worst. So the question is, okay, well, would you trade up to get a Barkley? Yeah, absolutely, I'd trade up. But you're giving up 3 number ones to move up to get him. You're giving up your number 1 this year, next year, and the year after that,
which you can't do for a running back.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Yeah. I think Josh Allen I would move up for if he dropped to a certain point, but I have to do that, so I'm going to stay away from it. I think the other player
all over again, Rob.
I said they're not going to do it. So
come on, man! He can throw it 90 yards. That's like the perfect situation. He's actually roll back into the end zone every time and heave ho.
He's actually pretty good on accuracy.
Kyle Bowler.
Pretty sweet, man. I bet you can get into a trash can from that far.
All right, well, here's the guy I would move up for. I think Darwin James, safety, would be the only other player I would move up, but he would have to get to 9, 10, or 11 for me to make that jump, for them to make that jump, I think. And if I'm going to give up anything, I'll give up a third-round pick to go get him because they need a stud on defense. They need someone to really motivate this team like Ray Lewis did. They need someone back there. And you got a hard-hitting safety, a guy who can play like that. That will motivate that defense. I guess that's a little bit better. So that's the guy I'm looking for.
I agree with you 100% that we need like a figurehead, like alpha dog type player. But I want him at wide receiver. I want it at wide receiver. I don't want. I'm happy to get all the talented DBs and linebackers that we can get. We have got to get somebody on offense that is like, we're going to go in here and we're going to score 38, we're going to score 45, and that's how it's going to be. And if the defense does its job as well, then great. But we've got to have somebody that's not just like, well, we made some first downs, and, if we just had that one playback that got dropped, we could have, I'm tired of those conversations. I need somebody that's like, yeah, man, we're going to go in here and fuck these guys up.
Well, the thing about that is if you go get Jarvis Landry, they better be. I think the problem with that is you kept Marty Morningweg, and when you bring in a guy like Jarvis Landry's going to want to win, or he's going to quit on you. I mean,
well, we're going to win. I mean, we had an embarrassing, like, can't get out of its own way offense, and we tripped our way, to like, a yard or two from the playoffs. And like 2 years in a row, we blew it right at the end. And we were, our teams were almost unwatchable the last 2 years, and we still almost made the playoffs both years. So we're gonna win. I mean, I was having this conversation with Rob earlier. basically he was saying if you're a wide receiver, if you're a free agent marquee type player, what?
Well, wait. That was one of my questions. That was one of my questions.
Yeah, and my answer to that is you don't sell him on, oh, we've got Tom Brady and you'll come here and get 25 touchdowns or whatever like that. You sell him on like I said, the player that I'm looking for at wide receiver is that alpha dog, that guy that thinks he's the best wide receiver in the league, that wants the ball every down. I'm open every motherfucking down. Just give me the ball, feed the beast. That's what I want. And so if you're trying to get that guy, which I am, you sell that guy on, we're one piece away. We've never had a wide receiver like you before. Joe Flacco has never had. He's got garbage around him. And you put you on this team, we're almost a playoff team with nobody at wide receiver. You get on this team, and we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's what you sell. It's the dream you're selling. You're selling ego. You're not selling offensive system. Although I do agree with you 100% that Marty Mornhinweg should have been shown the door.
All right. So when we go back to Al for a second. All right, Al. I was going to ask Bill that exact question, which was, how do you sell a wide receiver and coming to Baltimore? How do you sell Jarvis Landry? How do you sell an Allen Robinson? How do you sell one of these guys to come to this team when your quarterback's throwing 20 touchdowns, 15 touchdowns, or whatever I said before, 52 touchdowns in 3 years? How do you sell a guy to come here?
Part of it is you need receivers to go make plays for you too. And Joe Flacco doesn't have that kind of guy. I mean, you need Ben Roethlisberger. He's a great quarterback, and he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. But Ben has passes that he can throw down the field 5 yards, and Antonio Brown can take that thing 80 yards to the house. I mean, Joe Flacco doesn't have that guy. Joe Flacco has guys that'll catch the ball 5 yards down the field, and they're getting tackled. So it's just a difference. I mean, you're selling him on, hey, you can come here, you can be a playmaker, and we can win with you. I mean, the defense I think played well last year. I think in stretches they missed some plays, but at the end of the day, I think if we pay Jarvis Landry would come to Baltimore.
So I'm just asking you, like, hey, Jarvis Landry, you're going to get 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. Are you okay with that?
Well, not only that, but by the time Landry gets here, we will have negotiated with his agent. We will whatever the contract is he's going to sign, and we will have negotiated the terms of the trade with Miami. So, but it's not like Landry's going to be upset that we don't have to sell Landry if he decides to get traded here. I mean, his team is deciding where he's going. The Dolphins are going to try to get whatever they can get out of it because they're not going to keep his $16.1 million salary on the book or whatever it is. So they're not going to keep him. So Landry is dictating where Landry's going.
Well, I'll stop you. I'll stop you there because I think Landry has a lot more leverage because he signed that tender and they're over the cap now.
That's what I just said. I agree 100%. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like he's got Miami's over a barrel. They're not going to keep $16 million on the books. So Landry is going to dictate where Landry goes. And if it's Baltimore, it means he wanted to come here. We already know that they tried to trade for him, last year. Yeah. So they want him. So I don't want to give up too much, but I badly want Jarvis Landry. He is the player we should get.
Oh, go ahead.
So Rob, I think you sell him on the tradition. I mean, when guys walk in here, I mean, the one thing he doesn't see, I mean, he's seen recent championships that the Ravens have won, the tradition, this has been a perennial playoff team, and they've hit a rut, but he's the guy that can help get them back there. And it's realistic that he could. So I mean, that's something you could sell him on. Hey, you're the missing piece that could get us back to the playoffs. Help us build a winner here in Baltimore. They've got some good young pieces across the offensive line with Alex Collins as a running back. Some good young pass rushers with Bowser. Hopefully Tim Williams can pull it together. Great young cornerback with Marlon Humphrey. Hopefully Tavon Young can come back and be a player for them. So they've got some great young pieces in Baltimore. They just need everybody to take a step forward this year to make the team a better team.
But hang on a second, Vance. I'm going to come to you in a second. I'm just give it Allen one more second here. So if I'm Allen Robinson, I had 1,400 yards, and I'm coming to get 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. Or if I'm Des Bryant, I'm saying is, how do you get that guy to say yes with 800 yards, 6 touchdowns? You're just talking about winning. What is it like? I want my numbers up.
The teams that are going to pay an Allen Robinson aren't going to the playoffs and aren't even close. So who's going to pay him? The Browns are going to pay him. I mean, San Francisco, while Jimmy G played well down the stretch, I still don't think San Francisco is the playoff team in the NFC this year.
Yeah, the Bears are probably the most likely for Allen Robinson, I think. But
all right, I'll give it to Vince then. Go ahead. You got sell him. How do you sell a wide receiver to come here with 800 yards, 6 touchdowns?
First of all, I think the premise of your question is ridiculous. But
well, you got to take a pitch, right? The guy walks in your office, you got to sell a pitch, don't you?
Yeah, but let's think about. I mean, for all the struggles we've had at the receiver position in terms of drafting a true number one, let's not forget how many free agents we've brought in. I mean, Steve Smith, Derek Mason, Anquan Bolden. We thrive on guys that either have something to prove or people have thought they were, washed up or done. So yeah, while maybe an Allen Robinson is going to chase the money and he's a pipe dream for us because someone like the Bears are going to pay him way more than we would dream. Somebody like a Jarvis Landry who, is feeling pretty disrespected about how Miami treated him. We won't need to sell him. I mean, and he'll see the success that free agent receivers have had from, and it's not always all about the numbers. It's about, the success we've had as a team. And, at the end of the day, you sell the culture, you sell the winning, you sell, the locker room, you hear it all the time, but every free agent we ever bring in, it's always first-class organization that, they do things the right way. So none of that has went away just because, we've struggled here the last 3 or 4 years. And, you turn on 105.7 and it sounds like it's a piece of shit organization. But bottom line is around the league, this is still a highly respected organization. So that's the least of my concerns.
No doubt. Plus, people diminish the level to which the facility itself sells the franchise. And I mean, I'm not intimately familiar with what everybody's home office looks like around the league, but ours is definitely one of the best, if not the best. And I mean, just that facility, you bring them in there with the putting green and the fucking helicopter pad or whatever they got going over there, man, they're like, oh man, this is baller. I'm going in here, you can't discount. Those guys spend so much time at the facility. If the facility is 100% on point, those guys are blown away just like anybody would be.
Yeah, and bottom line is we've never really had problems recruiting free agents that we've wanted. So I don't think that's ever a problem. When you get into some of the alpha number one receiver talk, it's always about money at the end of the day. So I think that's the big limitation we have right now. It's not about selling the opportunity.
I even think money-wise, I mean, the Ravens can make this thing work. I mean, naturally, they're not touching this Joe Flacco contract at this point because you get a little flexibility and you can get out from under it next year. But, I mean, of course, Brandon Williams. I mean, you can go to Marshall Yanda. Tony Jefferson, who's in the first year of that deal. I mean, Mosley's an $8 million cap hit for the Ravens, almost $9 million. If you can sign him to a long-term deal, I mean, the Ravens are going to get some cap flexibility in the next couple of years, especially when you take that $25 million Flacco cap hit off of the books.
No doubt.
So off the books means you cutting them?
I mean, now the Ravens have the leverage. So even if next year you don't cut Joe Flacco, you can go to Flacco and ask him to take a pay cut.
No doubt, and you should, because I mean, I'm as grateful and as happy that Flacco went on a historic run just in time to be the Super Bowl MVP and bring it home. I'm as happy as anybody about that. But since that day, when he had Baltimore bent over a barrel like Ving Rhames in Pulp Fiction, since that day, he hasn't earned the contract. I mean, yeah, we have not given him the type of options in the passing game at the skill positions that we probably should have, but it's not for lack of trying. We took Crockett Gilmore in the 3rd round. We took Williams in the 2nd round. We took Perriman in the 1st round. There's only so many resources to go around. We just keep blowing it. Like, you got to hit one of them,
Well, they had the Gronk, remember, and Dallas Jones, or no, New England Jones right in front of us. We had Dez and Dallas Jones right in front of us.
Well, that's
just a good point.
That happening. I mean, Reggie Wayne got taken right in front of us. Des Bryant got taken right in front of us. There's a long history of people jumping up in front of us to get people.
But somewhere in there, if you're a $25 million a year quarterback, you've got to make your receivers at some point better. And Flacco's just not there. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I'm appreciative of everything that Flacco's done in Baltimore. He won a Super Bowl here, but at this point now, he's just not the same guy, and he's not worth $25 million a year. So can you kick the can down the road on a few guys because you're going to have some cap flexibility in a couple years? I say yeah. So move some of that Brandon Williams money down the road. Move some of Tony Jefferson's money down the road. Try to sign Brandon Carr to a longer deal. I mean, add another year to his deal. To get his cap number down. Cut Jeremy Maclin. Maclin was terrible here.
Wow. So if I was a wide receiver, I'd just listen to that. I'd be like, man, I'm not coming here. Because you just said, Joe Flacco is just not doing the job. And I agree with you.
Yeah. And look, I think, I guess I've been called a Flacco homer once or twice. But my bottom line is, this whole thing is tied together. They're all married together when you're talking about Harbaugh and Flacco. And, I think there was something to the back injury. Nobody wants to hear the excuses anymore. I get it. But there's no doubt he played better in the second half of the year. There is absolutely no doubt. If we get second half Joe Flacco for 16 games this year, I think we'll be in much better shape. And I'll just caution everybody, it's not a slam dunk to get out of this deal next year. You're talking a $16 million cap hit to let him go. So,
not to mention, I don't think the franchise thinks of him the same way that the fan base does.
I agree.
I mean, I am definitely no Flacco apologist. I do think he has certain qualities that I appreciate in a quarterback. I think he plays what you're getting with Flacco is on the by and large an average quarterback. And he's gonna every single year he's gonna have 1 or 2 games where he completely shits the bed, and it's usually gonna be against somebody that's like what Jacksonville used to be. A sort of also ran. You lay an egg against a team you're supposed to beat. But at the same time, when the game is at its most important, the biggest moments, that guy plays his best ball, and that there's something to be said for that. He's got a certain something, So I don't think. I mean, I guarantee you, they're looking forward to getting a little bit of cap flexibility, and it would not surprise me if they put a little heat on Flacco to be like, yeah, come on, how about you give a couple bucks back so we can get some guys to surround you, whatever. I would not be surprised if that conversation happened, behind closed doors. But I don't think they're not talking about getting out from under Flacco and moving on to some other guy. I don't think in the cast, I believe that's true.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That and it's like I rarely get to talk to a Ravens fan who actually can see the forest through the trees, and it's like that. I just tell everybody, anytime somebody brings up this is pretty much it for Flacco, and we'll be moving on. I say. have you guys like listened to Bashotti and Ozzy and the front office talk about Joe? I mean, they talk about him as a partner in this. So look, I mean, Joe is what he is at this point. I feel like it's nauseating continuing to talk about what he is and what he isn't, or what he, and kind of, doing the full breakdown every single year. We know what Joe is at this point. He is good enough to win with. He's not going to elevate players around him. He is going to give you, a respectable effort most of the time. He will shine when the lights are brightest. I mean, bottom line is he did everything possible to beat Pittsburgh 2 years in a row at Heinz Field. That would have essentially solidified our playoff berth, if not for our defense. So, for all the faults and all the nonsense and all the stats you want to throw at me, the bottom line is I'm still just as confident today as I was in 2012 that we can win with this guy. And until we get into a situation where we have the financial leverage or over him to be able to think about moving on, to me, it's a pointless conversation. And the conversation needs to be, what can we do to make Joe the best Joe he can be? And the noise about what he is and what he isn't, and to me, is just noise.
All right. Well, that brings me to my question or my answer. And I think the answer is you must hit the nail on the head. How do you make Joe better? That's a run game. Every year he's had a good run game. He's played much, much better. 2014, 27 touchdowns. What was it, 2012, 2011? I think he had over 20 again with a strong run game. So they should be concentrating on the offensive line and a good run game. Now, I know you guys like Alex Collins. He was pacing for 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. Do you draft another running back in this draft to help you? A bigger guy?
Yes.
Go ahead, Al. You can go first.
Absolutely. You have to. I like Kenneth Dixon. I mean, I thought Kenneth Dixon flashed and looked like he was going to be I won't say the next Ray Rice, because I think that's kind of disrespectful, and I thought Ray Rice was a great player for the Ravens. But he flashed that he could catch the ball out of the backfield. He could make the big plays and hit some home runs. But I don't know what you're going to get when you get Kenneth Dixon back. And I feel like there are some good running backs in this draft. I mean, you've got the two guys out of Georgia, Chubbs and Michelle. I mean, the kid from LSU. That and a lot of these kids are going to be there in the second round for them to potentially pick. So I think you've got to draft the running back in this draft. I think the second round may be a little too early, especially if you're looking to add some depth to the offensive line, and really another starter to the offensive line if they lose Ryan Jensen, and you need someone else to. I mean, and depending on what happens with Austin Howard as well, but I'm definitely picking a running back, and I'd probably say third round. I'm taking a running back in the draft this year.
All right, go ahead, Vince. Go ahead. Oh, who's up? Will?
Whatever. Yeah, I would definitely look at running back also. I'll go even further on Kenneth Dixon. I still believe Kenneth Dixon is a stud. I don't know if you're going to get the knucklehead stuff out of the way with the suspensions and all that shit. Obviously that gets in the way of a career. I do like Alex Collins a lot. If I'm looking for a back in the draft, I'm looking for a slash type, I really liked Curtis Samuel out of Ohio State last year. I was a player I really wanted us to get. Now, he didn't do very much, last year, but I think that's the type of player we need. We need somebody that can catch the ball out of the backfield and make plays. I haven't really looked at the running backs because it's not really other than like drooling over Barkley, and I looked at Geis for a minute, but I just think we need, if we're going to get somebody, we need the player that they tried to plug Danny Woodhead into being. We need a guy out of the backfield that can be like another receiver on the field.
Turn on the national championship game and watch Sony Michel run from Georgia. against that Alabama defense. That kid's a beast.
All right, go ahead, Vince.
He's going in the second round.
He is.
I think Will. I'm right where Will is. I'm certainly not ready to bury Kenny Dixon in the least. In fact, I have similar thoughts on him. Alex Collins. Let's see what he becomes. I mean, look, he's got to back up what he did last year. Certainly, I loved what I saw. But the one thing that I think the backfield is lacking is a game changer. Somebody who can take a screen and take it 80 yards, who we can, hit a crease and is gone. We don't have that guy. I think I love the Danny Woodhead signing as much as anybody probably. Unfortunately, the injury derailed him, and I'm just not sure what he is at this point in his career. I think he's a nice player, but we need that game changer, so it's, this team lacks playmakers. So you tell me we can get a playmaker at running back. Sure. I'm not passing that up. But yeah, it's definitely more of the third down back type, the guy who can, create on his own. And I think Al might've mentioned this earlier, but and I think I saw something on PFF. I mean, I think we were dead last in yards after catch in the league. And it just goes to show you that we don't have anybody that can create on their own.
Yep.
At any skill position, we do not have anybody who can create on their own. And until we get that, we're not going to unlock this offense. That's just the bottom line.
I think Campanaro is a nice player, but he can't stay on the field. I think he's a decent punt returner. I think he does add an element of being able to get out of places as a slot receiver type. But the best ability is availability, so you can't get off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the movie we've seen that Campanaro movie play out too much.
Yeah.
I like the kid, but I mean, bottom line is
I don't think unless we hit a home run with we get 4 wide receivers between free agency and the draft, I'm not cutting Campanaro before a bunch of other guys because he adds value in the return game. If he stays healthy, he adds something on the field. I'm not cutting him over some other guys unless we just knock it out of the park in the draft and free agency.
Agreed.
All right. So big question here, I guess I just kind of found online actually is pass rusher a need for this team? Suggs is 36, man. So I know we got some 2 young guys last year, but should they get another pass rusher if one comes at 16 or second round that can make a difference? Another playmaker. So is pass rusher something you would take in this draft, first 2 rounds?
Rob, I'll jump in. I would say no. You've got too many needs on offense, and you need to see what Tyus Bowser, Tim Williams. I mean, you've invested too many draft resources in some of these guys. I mean, Zadarius Smith. You have Matt Judon, who I think had a hell of a year last year, and if he can come out and build on what he did last year, I mean, look out. I mean, he's going to be one of the better outside linebackers in this league next year. So that's 4 guys without talking about Terrell Suggs. And if you can just turn Terrell Suggs into a situational pass rusher in 2018, I mean, I think you're okay because you've got 5 guys already that are going to make the 53-man roster. So you don't have room to waste a second round pick. I mean, unless there's a guy that's up here that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, outside of Chubb. If he falls to 16, then I'm taking Bradley Chubb. But outside of that,
no doubt.
Outside of that, I'm not. I don't see anybody that you could take at 16 or even in the second round. That's going to be a better pro right now in 2018 than any of the guys that are on the roster today. And to Vince's point, I mean, this team is playing for the right now. So you've got to draft guys that are going to be on the field in 2018 and can make plays for the Ravens.
All right, go ahead, Vince.
I mean, the bottom line is you can never have too many pass rushers, as the old cliche goes. But yeah, am I investing a lot early in the pass rusher? No. You know, I again, Tim Williams to me was a developmental guy when we drafted him. I don't think he was pro ready. He was not a full time player at Alabama. He needs a lot of refinement to his game. But the only way that's going to happen is by putting him on the field. So, people want to say that he didn't really show last year. And, I guess my response would be he kind of was what I expected. He was not a ready made player coming out. So I still have high hopes for him long term. So I want to see what he can do. Tyus Bowser, we've talked about. I think he's more of an all-around linebacker. I don't think he's necessarily a pure edge rusher, but I think he is the ideal Ravens edge defender. And then you talk about, your Zadarius Smiths who's a very versatile guy. And Al hit the nail on the head. Matt Judon was probably our most underrated player last year. And I can't wait to see what he does this year. I think he's a future star in this league, in my eyes. So I think we're good. But I'm not going to pass up an opportunity if one presents itself.
All right, go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page as everybody else. I would definitely take Chubb if he got to 16, with no question about it. But other than that, I mean, Suggs is old, but he's still pretty good. And then, irrespective of Suggs, Judon, I mean. People, you're saying, I think he's a future star. I think he's a superstar right now. Like he played lights out last year, and the fact that his personality is big is only going to increase his stardom when people start to figure out who this guy is. I mean, obviously Suggs is the face of the franchise defensively right now, but there's going to be a vacuum when he leaves, and C.J. Mosley's not that guy. So, I think that Judon, if we keep him, which I can't imagine they're not going to keep him, I think he's the future face of the franchise defensively, and I love the guy. And then I already said about Bowser. I think he's a great all around linebacker. I think he's excellent in coverage, and he probably won't get as many opportunities to pass rush because he's so good in coverage, but. He at Houston, he wasn't just finesse. Like you see a lot of guys in college that are winning with all speed. He's speed to power. He has heavy hands. You see him knocking offensive linemen and guards around before he got to the quarterback at Houston. And I think it's just a matter of time before the light comes on for both him and Williams. Because I expected more out of Williams. I agree that I thought he was a developmental player coming out of Alabama. He was not ready to play an NFL down, like every down role by any means. But I did think that we'd be able to get whatever, half dozen, maybe 8 if we were lucky, sacks out of him in the same type of role that we had Suggs in as a rookie. Because Suggs was a very part-time player as a rookie. He was third down only rushing, and he still got 12 or something 11 as a rookie or something. So I did think that we'd be able to get half a dozen, maybe a little bit more if we got lucky out of Tim Williams. But I do believe he's so athletic and so fast off the snap. When he starts to understand what he's doing, he's going to be a monster.
Interesting. No one on here even mentioned the new defense coach. That the rumor is he's more aggressive to use these guys. So maybe it's just a scheme that needs to change next year to get a better pass rush.
Also, nobody talked about the Boise Bullet. What's up with Kamale Correa on the back? I'm just kidding, man. He's going to be cut. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Correa going down as one of the worst draft picks in Ravens history.
Oh man, it hurts. It hurts every time I look at the board behind him. Oh, There's just so many good players behind him.
I was one of the people that said mindless Jack. Why didn't remember that? We were sitting in the draft, and why did we take mindless Jack? Why did we not do that?
Man, I was crying. Oh, it's so bad.
All right. Well, since it's getting a little bit late here, next time we do this about 3 weeks, we'll have free agency done, and we'll do a live mock draft. Okay. But last question of the night, I guess, for this podcast. I guess the question is next week for free agency, who would you be surprised we got? Just be who would you be surprised we got, and who would you be disappointed we didn't get or we didn't do next week? No, next week in free agency.
Oh,
because next time we talk, free agency will be done. We'll know who we have. Okay. So my question to you is, on the record, who would you be surprised? Who would you be like, I'm disappointed in free agency? We didn't do anything. If we got anybody in free agency that you're just disappointed in. So I guess I'll go first. I'll give you my example. I'd be disappointed if we signed Torrey Smith, and that was our free agency splash. Who would I be surprised by? Allen Robinson. If they somehow got Allen Robinson on this team, I'd be surprised and be very happy going into the draft. So that's my surprise in free agency. That's my disappointment.
All right, so I wouldn't call Torrey Smith a disappointment, because I think he could be a good complementary receiver here in Baltimore. So I'd like if they bring him back personally. I'll still go back to the guy we talked about a lot tonight, Jarvis Landry. I mean, I'd be surprised if he's a Baltimore Raven by the end of next week, because I think that's when this trade's going down for Jarvis Landry next week. So I'd be surprised if he's a Raven.
Who'd you be disappointed we signed?
Wide receiver for me, it'd be Dante Moncrief.
It could be anybody. It could be any player. They just signed some player, and they're like, "What was that? That's not a splash."
Dante Moncrief for me. I mean, if he's the only receiver that we pull out of free agency, I'll be disappointed.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I feel like there's better options, and the Ravens just have to make it work from a cap perspective to at least get a Sammy Watkins out of this free agent after these top 3 free agent wide receivers.
All right, Vince.
My surprise.
Who'd you be surprised by? We signed this person. You're surprised.
Well, I'll go with a non-free agent, but my surprise will be the trade for Dez.
Wow.
That's my ideal. That's my splash. That's my probably pipe dream, but that would be my pleasant surprise. Although I do, I think Jarvis or Allen Robinson would fit there as well. My disappointment would be a guy like Terrell Pryor. I think that's one of those names that people get excited about, but the bottom line is he's just not been a productive receiver, and I think he's getting at the point of his career where you have to wonder if he'll ever be, and I think he's fool's gold, so that would be a big disappointment if that's our guy.
All right, that's pretty good. I'd be pretty disappointed in Terrell Pryor as well and Moncrief. Go ahead, Will.
I can't really think of – there's not too many guys that I'd be disappointed to get, because I think that the free agent process is the first step. I would have taken a year ago when Terrell Pryor went from Cleveland to wherever the hell he went to. I would have taken Terrell Pryor off the season he had. I would have been excited to see if he would gotten better or not. Now I would be disappointed if we got to the end of whatever. We're in the middle of May and Terrell Pryor is the only guy we've gotten. I would be a little bit more nervous. But I think for me, the guy that I think is a dangerous sort of false hope is Sammy Watkins. If they signed him, I would get on board and I'd be like, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. So, hopefully Sammy Watkins stays healthy. But for real, he has not been really all that productive. Even on the Rams where they're throwing the ball to everybody, he just didn't, he's had some injury issues. He's had some, ineffectiveness against big talent. I don't know. I could get on board and I would get excited to see if he was going to be any good. But again, if Sammy Watkins was the only guy we signed in free agency, I would be uncomfortable at the beginning of May.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Will. The breaking point for me on Sammy Watkins is the type of contract we give him. If we pay him top of the line free agent dollar as if he was the Sammy Watkins that everyone thought he was coming out of Clemson, then yeah, I'm very nervous / potentially disappointed because there is a ton of risk there. But if we get him on a short-term, prove-it type contract, I'm almost thinking of like the Alshon Jeffrey type contract that the Eagles gave. We can bring him in on a 1-year prove-it deal and say, hey, man, you really you've shown a ton of flashes, but here's a 1-year deal. Let's try to put it together and see what you can become.
Yeah, Watkins.
I get really excited at that point.
You're not getting Watkins on a 1-year deal. Somebody, Cleveland or Chicago or somebody that is heavily in need. I mean, we're obviously heavily in need of a wide receiver, but somebody that's got a ton of money who free agents do not want to go to is going to sign Sammy Watkins to a top of the line deal. The only guy I would give a true top of the line deal to is Landry. I would be ecstatic to get Robinson, but I would want him I would give Jarvis Landry 5 for $75 million and be completely happy with that deal. If I'm trying to get Allen Robinson, I'm trying to get him for 3 for 30 or 3 for 33. But it's got to be a smaller, lower value deal.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about your comment on Sammy Watkins is I think this time last year, none of us would have thought Alshon Jeffrey would have signed to a 1-year deal, right? I mean, I was fairly certain he was going to get big time money. So, you never quite know how the market materializes. I do agree because it seems like there's a shortage of receivers out there, and there are plenty of needs across the league that it's probably unlikely, but I wouldn't rule it out.
I mean, I think for Allen Robinson, I wouldn't be surprised if Allen Robinson takes a prove it type of deal, because you haven't seen enough production from him as he's coming off of his rookie deal. And for a team to go and commit $60 million to an Allen Robinson, I just don't think that it's gonna happen. And he may need to rebuild his market value to get more in the long term, kind of basically what Alshon Jeffrey did. And I think Sammy Watkins may be in a similar boat. I think everyone's going to be clamoring to get Jarvis Landry, and that's what it sounds like it is. Robinson certainly is the second guy in the boat, and I'm sure teams will make calls for Des Bryant to see if he's available. And then Sammy Watkins, I guess, is the next tier guy. But
I would also maybe explore trying to get one of the Green Bay receivers. If Jordy Nelson could shake loose, they got to make a choice. He's getting older and he's had some injury issues or whatever. But if you could get him, on a shorter deal, I don't know what's left on his contract, but I imagine whatever he signed previously is going to be basically in line with what you're going to have to pay. And the possibility, is if he stays healthy, he's legitimately one of the best receivers in the league when he's healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's important because that's always where our bread is buttered, right? I mean, we thrive on those guys that get cut because, number one, it doesn't impact the comp pick formula, which we're in love with. I don't think we'll play the comp pick game this year because we're not losing any big time free agents this year, so I don't see. We don't have like a Ricky Wagner where we're trying to hang on for a third round comp pick, but that's always been our formula, right? So, especially over the next week, I'm going to be interested to see if any big names get cut.
Does anybody know off the top of their head if the fact that Baltimore will have to trade for Landry, who is under the franchise tag, and then sign him to a new deal, does that contract count as a free agent contract, or would that be nullified because it's a traded player in regards to the contract?
Yeah, I just actually did research on that. Because Landry signed his franchise tender, that he would impact the comp pick formula.
Okay. All right.
It would be as if we traded for a guy under contract.
Okay.
Oh, that sucks.
No, it's good.
Yeah, that's good.
No, it was good. Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's much sense as I should.
It wouldn't count as a free agent we signed under the comp pick.
Right, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. As far as I'm concerned, that makes him even more attractive.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. I guess any last thoughts before I guess we wrap this thing up here for tonight, and then in I guess maybe early April we'll do our first mock draft. Everyone will get the opportunity to be a GM, and we'll start 1 good through 32. But any final thoughts?
No, this was good.
No, Will.
My final thought is the Ravens have got to swing for the fences here. They've got to.
I hope a week from now we're talking about the new receiver being either Landry or Robinson. That's I'm completely fixated on that until it happens or doesn't.
All right, go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, the Ravens have got to hit a home run this year, and in free agency, I mean, it's Ozzy's going out. This is his last year. They've got to make some of these. They've got to make some of these picks count. So the scouting group has got to do it. Hopefully has done a better job this year for the Ravens. And my last one, and from a free agent perspective, I think they need to look at re-signing Ryan Jensen. I like that guy. I mean, that guy's got some dog in him. I mean, he's turned into a pretty good player for them, and hopefully maybe they can bring him back. So you don't need so many other pieces, because Hurst isn't coming back to be a starter on that offensive line, and hopefully you can keep Lewis and Yanda healthy. But I'd try to re-sign Ryan Jensen. That's my last little plug for the Ravens.
I'd be very happy with that.
Yep.
Well,
then I'll throw in a last thought, Rob. Sorry.
Hit it.
My bottom line is I think you'll know before the league year starts what activity we're looking at. I mean, I'm going to be really interested to see the cuts we make, some of the restructures. We talked about it a little bit, but if they're going to make good on their promise to make some splashes, as Steve said, you're going to know based on some of the moves they make before free agency, whether it be an extension for Mosley, a restructure of a Jimmy Smith or a Brandon Williams or a Yanda even. You'll obviously have your cuts with Macklin and company, but we should know pretty quickly in the next week how the Ravens are going to shuffle the decks to make the splashes they claim to be making.
It's a good point. Well, tampering begins March 12th, it said, so we can get some information starting Monday. So after this weekend, we'll get something there. So I guess my final thought is, if they have $6 to $10 million to spend, I agree. You got to get an Allen Robinson, you got to get Jarvis, you got to get somebody to make us all excited again. If not, disappointment. People are not going to be happy. I can't see it any other way. All right. So I guess we'll meet up again in a couple of weeks, and we'll do a free agency roundup, and then we'll do a live mock draft, man. All right. Well, thank you guys. I'll go ahead and hit stop the broadcast.